Greetings, Planeswalkers. Gamesman here. And my daily today is play 25 lands, so I thought I'd show another one of my landfall decks. This is obviously an all-green deck called Greenland Surge. There's a few mythics in this deck to give it a little punch, but we'll go over this now. One of the things about landfall decks is I think you tend to get a little overzealous with lands, and consequently you end up with a deck with so many colors that it requires so many different lands that it ends up being slower than it should be. And I've said it in the past, the standard ranked game is all about speed. It's rare that you win a long drawn out match. More often than not, the game's over in less than 15 turns, if not less than 10. So let's start with the 1-mana cards. We have the Skyclave Pick-Axe. When it enters the battlefield, it attaches to target creature you control. Anytime I have an equipment card, I always like that mechanic that it gets to the creature immediately. It also has the landfall mechanic. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, equipped creature gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. So we're going to be placing that on some of these creatures that I'll go through in a minute. Druid Class. This is a good card for a landfall deck. We can gain a life every time a land enters the battlefield. For 2 colorless, 1 green, play an additional land, and 4 colorless, 1 green becomes a target creature with haste that's equal to the number of lands we control, creature or power and toughness. Lotus Cobra. Obviously, landfall deck, when land's coming in, we get that extra mana, so this makes this deck even quicker. Roaring Earth from the recent Neon expansion. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. So we get this out, we get the Skyclave Pick-Axe on something, and we're rapidly generating a huge boost to whatever creature we have it on. Shigeki, Jukai Visionary. This is a good card for a land focused deck. Once we get him out for 1 colorless, 1 green, we can return him to our hand and reveal the top 4 cards of our library and put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped. So we can use that in the middle of our turn before combat to boost some of the landfall stuff that's in this deck. Bala Ged Recovery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand or its green land. Primal Adversary. This is more of a mid to late game card when we have enough mana to start boosting this creature and creating those wolf creatures with haste that are lands. Roiling Regrowth. We sacrifice a land and we get 2 lands. This is pretty straightforward. All we've got is green forests in this deck. This is more of the cornerstone creature, Territorial Scythcat. Has trample, 2 green or 2 colorless, 1 green. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Territorial Scythcat. So that plus the Skyclave Pick-Axe plus the Roaring Earth, this cat's going to get big. Augur of Autumn. We can play lands from the top of our library, and we can also cast creature spells from the top of our library once we have enough creatures out. Kazandu Mammoth, another landfall creature. Or land if we need it. Kazandu gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and that Skyclave Pick-Axe on that thing becomes a beast quickly. Cartographer Survey. Top 7 cards of our library. Put 2 land cards from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest into our library. Splendid Reclamation. If we've sacrificed some of those lands, or our opponent has wrecked some of the creatures that are also doubling as lands, Kazandu Mammoth in this case, we bring them back to the battlefield tapped. So imagine Skyclave Pick-Axe if 5 lands hit the battlefield, or Lotus Cobra, what that might generate, or Roaring Earth, what that might generate, or Druid Class. Vastwood Surge. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. If we kick it, we put counters on a creature. Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. This is the big bad beast of this deck, equal to the number, power and toughness are equal to the number of lands we control, and non-token creatures are forest lands in addition to their other types. And then Cultivator Colossus. We want to save some land cards back in our hand before this beast comes out. Trample, power, toughness are equal to the number of lands we control. And as it enters the battlefield, we put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. So these landfall creatures and equipment and enchantments, we can, if we're lucky, get at least 2, if not 3 or 4 lands out when this thing comes out. And then, of course, just forests. We've got Boseiju, who endures as a little bit of utility. So this deck is mostly meant to be just really quick. And if we can get some of this early stuff out, our creatures get too big to handle. And then if we manage to make it into the mid-game without beating our opponent, we've got some of these bigger cards as well. And given that it's only 63 cards, it will go pretty quickly and we'll get the cards we need pretty early on. So I hope you like the deck. Please subscribe to the channel. If you like it, make some comments. I know there's a ton more landfall cards you could put in this deck, but again, the goal was to get something quick to overwhelm our opponent in the early game. This is Games Walker saying thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.